Um, Not my circus, not my monkey.
It's certainly your stage play.
That is true. It is, in fact, my stage play.
So we are already going on Salem this time. This is weird. This is really weird.
It is. Although it's interesting. I think this is the first one of the chapters that I've not marinated for like a week after finishing it, which is fun.
You finished this earlier today.
Yeah, like 5 hours ago, 6 hours ago. So I've had 6 hours to marinate. You know, a quick pickle, one could say.
Hey, technically, you are done with all of the actual Epic of Remnant chapters. So
That's true. Honestly, Salem was a great technical ending for Epic of Remnant, and I've got to say, Epic of Remnant was sort of miles and away, like as a collective, so much better than Part 1. So much better than Part 1.
It actually feels like the writing was trying finally.
Yeah, it really does.
But I guess we always have to start off with this question. So Seki, how are you feeling about the FGO Gacha?
Oh, what did I roll on anything while I was playing through Salem?
Yeah, it's Juge, didn't you?
I did. FGO Gacha's great. FGO Gacha's fantastic. You know, the rates are just stunning. How much did I spend on him? Like 30 quartz?
Yeah, you didn't spend that much at all.
No, I think it was like 110 pull, maybe 2. So honestly, you know, I'm feeling great about the FGO Gacha. This is great. And I just got Cha-Cha in the shop, and I got the 2 Mecha Ellies like a couple weeks ago. Oh, I'm rolling in it.
That Leaf Shop really is a godsend. Like, this is like the best thing FGO's modern, like, the team has done lately, is that Leaf Shop, because it is nice to just have usable servants of pretty much every class at like just accessible to you.
Yeah, it's nice. It's convenient.
But I will. So more seriously about what you played, though. Let's go into the gameplay. That's always how we have to start these off here, because this also had its own. This chapter had its own gameplay unique gimmicks going for it.
I think on the gameplay, right, what I can very firmly say is that I think this chapter, more than any other in Epic of Remnant, has had its sort of difficulty rating destroyed by servants being released after it. Because here's the thing, outside of the final 2 fights with Abby, which chat coached me through, outside, and I would have been quite, like, I would have struggled with them quite a bit, to be honest, on my own. But with the exception of those 2 fights, nothing in this chapter was actually a challenge. Nothing. Nothing was a challenge that could not just be solved with throw a bigger berserker at it or team up with a servant that I have, right? Like in just a better alignment, right? Like Ashia worked really well for me, like just pairing him up with an Ashia and having double Domon. So, like, I really feel like out of all the Remnant chapters, this one feels the worst in terms of power creep, because I was not worried about any of these fights until I got to Abby. And even Abby, I mean, I think it would have been much harder without Bazette and what they showed me to do, but I think I probably could have done it, to be honest.
Can I be, like, add a little bit more wood to this fire here?
Yeah.
That wasn't power creep that made this chapter that easy. This chapter has always been, in my opinion, one of the easiest post Part 1 chapters to beat.
Well,
because like Abby really is the start and end of where that difficulty was when that dropped. Like, think about it for a second. Like, how many? Like, what were the major boss fights of this chapter?
There weren't really any, but I think people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the way you and some of the chat talked about, like, the power down, I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it seemed like it was in practice. Like I saw that the power levels of my servants got cut, but it didn't really seem to affect their effectiveness against the enemies that were being given to me.
Well, it's because they didn't give you spongy enemies because they knew you weren't
Yeah.
doing spongy enemy damage because your servants are all V level. They
Yeah.
accommodated for that, so it really makes the entire gimmick feel kind of pointless. It's story wise, it makes sense. It's just some story integration, but as a gameplay mechanic, it's really just not a factor.
But I'm going to be honest, I kind of liked it. Like, for a lot of intents and purposes, I kind of liked it because the feeling I got from this chapter was that even without coaching, I probably could have figured out Abby on my own. It just would have taken me a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very drastic contrast to like where I was really struggling in Agartha and kind of starting to hate those like Herc fights and like those nasty fights near the end with like conditions and all sorts of stuff, because that just felt annoyingly pedantic, right? Whereas this felt like it was sort of a little bit easy, but achievable for a player who isn't perfect at the game and doesn't know how to like play the system. And I liked that. Maybe I just liked that it was a little bit easier because when I struggle, sometimes I feel a little stupid when I struggle because I know that like if I could make a plan with my team or like what I have, or if I had the mats to like level all my servants and I knew how to use them together, I probably could do a lot more without having to rely on just borrowing really powerful characters. But that's so much information to retain when I'm not serially playing this game daily, like doing missions with these characters constantly. And I genuinely don't have the time in my day-to-day life to do that. Like that's not something I can even schedule time for, right? Like there are days when I like wake up, go to work, run errands, get home, and my only time for myself is once I'm in bed and I'm like reading on my phone, right? And I'm not giving up that time to play FGO. So like day-to-day play is not realistic, but like it just means that there's like large amounts of information that are available, right? Like I could go and memorize all this information, but I just haven't, So it's nice to play a chapter where it felt like I could do it all on my own
Mm-hmm.
without help. Like the help was nice. The help made it so much easier and faster. But I really do feel that I could have coped on my own with strategies that I've been taught.
All that said, yes, that Abby fight was absolutely supposed to be much, much, much harder than it was than what you did with it. Because even chat, I don't think was ready for how badly power crept Abby was going to be. Because Abby, like, they're like, Bazette. I wonder how Bazette would interact with Abby's gimmick. You brought Bazette in, and every time Abby would hit you, Bazette would knock out one of her HP bars, like entirely, because she's not a break bar servant. She didn't stop at
Yeah.
one like Bazette normally would with break bars. She just killed herself over and over and over again. And this like rewind time mechanic is why she doesn't have those break bars. So
Yeah.
every time you're going through effectively a break bar
Well,
without having to change rounds.
and I also got lucky because I had Waver and I have Koyan, which means I have battery servants now, and I have Mash, and so it kind of and I just like every single time I needed to drop Bazette's NP, I had enough to make like a Bazette chain. Like I also rolled incredibly lucky on getting so many Bazette cards constantly.
Having Waver definitely helped too, because that just gave you that instant 50% battery, but he was
Yeah.
always in the game.
Yeah.
I think what you missed out on, or not missed out on, you're probably happy you didn't have to do this. If Abby, because Abby didn't get her NP, I was watching during those fights.
No,
Abby did not
no,
get her
Abby
NP
did
on
not.
you once. If Abby had gotten her NP on you, it's single target only, but that servant, it was basically dead. Unless they were like an alter ego with full HP, they were dead because it strips buffs and then it hits you. Like all of your buffs would be gone and then you would take damage. And it's single
Yeah.
target, so it's going to kill any servant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that Abby fight could have been much harder, but Vizette it, like trivializes that fight, and I didn't even think about that one.
Yeah. I don't know, but I enjoyed it. I think because of that, I really did enjoy the gameplay of this chapter. So I was a big fan of that. I think in terms of actually playing through the physical combats, this has been my favorite chapter so far in Epic of Remnant.
Okay. I'll say this, going forward, I don't think the difficulty is going to spike. Not to like in Shimosa, there were a bunch of fights that were like, oh, like this, when you knock out this break bar, this thing activates that you couldn't have predicted, and suddenly like this fight feels somewhat impossible if you don't have this set of servants ready for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get a fight like that for a while. Like, it's going to be there's going to be some hard fights here and there, but it's not going to be like, oh, this chapter's one of these fights after another after another.
Yeah.
So hopefully the difficulty balances itself out for you, at least in the early parts of part 2. But I guess now is probably a good time to shift us over to the story. This story is simultaneously as wordy as Shimosa, but also significantly shorter. Because you notice that like at around the halfway point, everything just happens much quicker. Like a solid 40 to 50% of the time you spent on this chapter was in the opening few sections.
Yeah, I think that was interesting for me because chapter 1 was obviously incredibly long, right? Like, it actually took me 2 streams to get through chapter 1. And it's not that I streamed, like, a shorter amount of time. No. It's just, it was incredibly long to read through the first, like, 2 to 3 chapters. And I don't know, I think, like, even though you said it was going to move quicker, I kind of assumed it was going to keep being as long all the way through, right? But they really front-loaded most of the dialogue into the first half of the chapter, which was kind of fine, to be honest, because the first part of the chapter, I think, is when I usually feel that I have the most energy and investment into a story, and I do usually want it to whittle down towards the end and kind of come to a finite conclusion, like towards the end, rather than developing even more at the last second. And I felt that they did a pretty good job here with that. Like, I didn't mind getting a lot of front-loaded, like, exposition dumps. And I think it also helped to narrow the scope of the chapter, that we were kind of losing some servants as we progressed through the chapter. So, like, Sasson was kind of didn't really come into play after about halfway through as much. Robin didn't talk a whole lot after halfway through, although that was a little disappointing because I feel like they really underutilized Robin in this chapter. I feel like he just kind of got dropped in for like some reason and then didn't actually get used. I felt like every single other servant was better utilized in this chapter.
His entire point in that chapter was just to get into pissing matches with Sanson.
And then you split them up.
Yeah.
And neither of them have, I mean, he doesn't really have a point anymore. And so on. So I think they did a kind of a good job of whittling servants down. But also it was interesting to have a chapter where we weren't really meeting a whole lot of servants. Because we really only met as a servant that joined up with us, T.H.E. Cersei kind of counts, kind of doesn't, because she occupies the place that Medea technically did. So it's a servant that we brought with us, but then it became a new servant.
This is technically her first introduction to the cast at all, and this is where she was introduced in the game.
Yeah. And then Abby, obviously, was our third servant, really. So we only added 2.5 members to our main cast. And our main cast wasn't very big to begin with. Which kind of, I mean, you keep it that condensed, you're kind of able to get away with whittling down the story as you whittle down the cast in a lot of ways. I do think Abby and Lavinia together were adorable. But Abby and Lavinia and then Sasson and Robin were probably my favorite dynamics this chapter. Just adorable and hilarious in alternating notes. Yeah. We're not talking about characters quite yet. We're still talking about story pacing, so you know.
Yeah. So I think
I loved the plays. I think the plays were a wonderful disruption to like the more serious story. I know we didn't get to read all of them, and obviously there's that one that I haven't read yet that I'll go back and read. But like, for example, the Jean one, that was great. That was fantastic. Three little pigs. Yeah. Oh my god. And the Sheba one was also fun. Like, all of the plays were like really nicely done. I also like that they just pulled in other servants in those because it made it more interesting to read and watch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, big fan of that as a story mechanic.
They're definitely good, especially because they tend like the plays are mostly in the first half, where it helps break up what's a lot of exposition and a lot of setup.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say your experience reading this chapter was very different from mine or anyone that played this chapter on launch. Like very remarkably different. Because when this dropped at launch, it was released in 3 parts. Like it was released kind of like an event would be. Like every day, a new story drop of content.
Huh.
Which is you don't usually get that with other chapters. Some chapters had some time gates where it's like, oh yeah, wait until part 2 releases. But this was more like this chapter's split in half and give it about a month and the second half will drop. That's being built up pretty much like another story drop.
Hmm.
This was more of like a daily piecemeal time gating it like our events are.
Hmm.
Which changed, I think, my experience reading this because I'm sure, like, well, I'm sure it sounds like you're a lot more, you're very positive on this chapter. I've always been a lot more negative on this chapter compared to, say, my brother has, like, the complete opposite opinion I do, but he also played it way after release, all at once. So when you think about the heavy story setup of that first part, and then the really crescendo fast pace of pretty much everything after that first part, that's kind of why my experience is probably a lot more negative, because I feel like they really sped past a lot of the more fun, Lovecraftian stuff, and spent way too much time on stuff like the plays and the setup in that first part. I've always had that problem with its pacing. But I also recognize that probably changes dramatically as you get into reading it all at once, because you're no longer like, oh, now I have to wait an entire day before I can get any kind of payoff to any of this, and I just sat down reading for 4 hours and nothing happened.
Yeah. Since I was sort of only constrained by the time I was putting into the game and everything was available to me, I obviously didn't feel that way about it at all. Granted, I think that the front half was definitely front loaded. And that's not necessarily the best thing, but like it certainly wasn't a deal breaker for me. I also feel like this is maybe the chapter so far that's walked the best line between wacky and serious. Nobody. Go. Cat.
I can definitely see that, because I'm not a big fan of the plays, but the Three Little Johns, that one was a level of unhinged that even made me chuckle.
I don't even like Jalter Santa Lily.
It's crazy because that play directly calls reference to a Christmas event that no one can play anymore.
Yeah.
That's why randomly Amakusa Shiro Tokisada shows up and is like, I am, what was it, the Santa Island Mask or whatever he was.
Yeah, Santa Island Mask, that was it.
It's like, that was a reference. You know, maybe Lasagna, you could give us that, the story of that Christmas event so people will know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, because that was hilarious. Like, Amakusa Shiro Tokisada just popping in as Santa Island Mask.
Because the entire thing's supposed to be a parody, I'm pretty sure, of, that one character in Sailor Moon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Tuxedo Mask, yeah. That's it.
Yep. Great.
So, yeah.
Absolutely stunning.
Let's see here. So, do we want to start poking through the characters here, or do you have any? Or I guess, how did you feel about it overall?
What, the story? Like the actual story? I liked it, but I think the Salem and the witch trials is kind of like a great setting for something like this, regardless, because you've got like a lot of fun stuff showing up, and then. Obviously, I know you're not as big of an H.P. Lovecraft buff as I am, but I love Lovecraft, right? Like, I love his writings. So for me, those constant little kernels and tidbits where I could just be like, or, ooh, I get that reference, did make me feel a little bit like Captain America in the first Avengers movie with the I get that reference.
You made a hilarious comment on stream at one point, imagine someone who didn't know the H.P. Lovecraft stuff but knew the old Salem stuff, the witch trials,
Yeah.
and that was me.
Yeah. I thought it might have been. And, like, here's the thing. There were a lot of deep takes, right, in the Lovecraft lore that was dropped, right? Like, this is not, like... Some of it's just, like, general stuff, right? But a lot of it was, like, deep takes. Like, you'd have to be into reading Lovecraft. Not just his main stories, but his short stories, his side stories, the little bits, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It is not for the faint of heart.
And I'll say, like, on the Salem side, there's a lot of cuts here too, and we'll get into this in the character section, I'm pretty sure. But but for the, like, a lot of the townspeople are directly based off of people that
Corey,
existed during
Miss
that time
Pickman.
period, and were
Yeah.
who were also depicted in the Crucible.
Yeah, and then, you know, chucking in Witchfinder General to just...
That was a funny trick, 'cause that's a completely different part of the world's witch hysteria.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
He's a bit of a...
It was great.
Okay, well, getting into our characters here, because I feel like we're itching at it. Let's start with our Chaldea crew. How are you feeling about Chaldea's Medea?
You know, here's the thing. I did not need chat telling me that Medea was acting funky. I got that one on my own, right? Like, something was up. We all knew something was up. I was not expecting Cersei to drop.
Because you didn't know that Cersei was this chapter, did you?
Yeah, because I don't think you told me that in the Cersei video.
I may have said it, but it wouldn't be the kind of thing I'd have spent too long on.
Yeah.
It would have been like, oh yeah, at one point Cersei impersonated Medea, and Medea was not happy or something like that in the Cersei video.
Yeah. So, like, it wasn't, but I really enjoyed Cersei, right? Like, as a character. Especially in the context of Salem witch trials, with, like, her general personality being very focused on, like, her own witchcraft and stuff. It was a very kind of, like, tongue-in-cheek, haha, like, aha, this is, like, the worst possible person to bring here.
Well, because what it means to be a witch in Greek mythology is very different than what it means to be a witch in the town of Salem.
Yep. Yeah, very much so. Having MASH along was interesting, but controversial opinion here. I actually don't think MASH was particularly useful as a character to have along this chapter, like, in person. I feel like MASH was really only there for the play bits primarily, which is fine. It just, the justification was that she was going to be, like, more useful on the ground. And it kind of feels like she was just there for, like, those funny bits with the plays. And then, like, a little bit of interaction with, like, Abby and Lavinia, but, like, several characters had good interaction with Abby and Lavinia, so that wasn't even unique to her. Like, I almost would have liked it if they had made, like, the trust or interaction that she had with Lavinia or Abby unique to her. Right? Like, if she was the only person who had connected with them in that way, then it would have felt more valuable to me. But, like, Neja also had a connection with them, and Sanson had a connection with them, and so it just, MASH was, like, one of many who had a connection.
It's the first time MASH hasn't been literally the central character in the story, and where she's more of a side, like, she's just part of the side cast here. Like, she really has the same narrative consequence as most of our side cast, if not even less.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, because I've come to kind of treat MASH more as, like, a general main character, and it feels like they don't know how to write her as a side character, but they insisted on making her a side character.
It's probably because because this entire, like, all the Epic Remnants was like a full year's worth of content, and that meant that was a full year worth where MASH was completely sidelined. So they're knowing that MASH is going to come back into play a lot more in part 2. I feel like this was chapter, like, MASH being in this chapter was mostly to start easing people back into having MASH as part of the group again.
I guess that's fair. I can see it. I just didn't love it in the context of, like, Mash's character in this chapter. So yeah, I just felt bad for Mash a little bit.
Let me jump to another member of the group who, like, I know design-wise you don't care for, but how did you feel about Matahari writing-wise? Because they gave her a good amount of focus at some point.
I liked Matahari writing-wise. I really did. I think she felt modern and interesting, and it felt like she had a fair amount to contribute in terms of, like, both intelligence and just situational awareness. I don't love her design, but I can get over that in the context of her story writing. Like, this was a pretty good introduction to Matahari. Certainly much better than the introduction we got to fucking Scheherazade in Agartha.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
This is really Matahari's first major and currently only major story appearance, and it wasn't bad. Like, they actively went and dug into her past and, like, made that a pretty big focal point of one part of the story.
And
like,
you
get to see her literally fighting the ghosts of her past.
Yeah, I liked that. I thought it was great. Like, the references to her as Margaretha Zell, that talks about her children and her husband and her family and her job too, right? Like, I liked all of that. I think they did really well with Matahari. I think, actually, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but, depending on whether it qualifies, this might be my hot take for the chapter. I think Matahari was the servant who has done best this chapter that we brought with us. Out of all the servants we brought with us, right? So not accounting for Abby and T.H.E, I think Matahari had the best writing in the chapter.
Well, then let's hop over to my personal pain, T.H.E.
That was rough. That was really rough. Here's the thing. T.H.E, I feel like, was marginally more involved in the story than Robin, but significantly less actually relevant or useful. T.H.E did not feel like they belonged here at all. Not topically, not historically, not in terms of the writing, not even in terms of the way that T.H.E interacted with anyone outside of, like, Abby and Lavinia.
There's that one funny interaction with the sailors in the bar.
It was awkward and it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
And especially the way that they tried to, like, especially the way that they played that off, because, like, obviously my first assumption going into that was that, like, the sailor was, like, coming on to her, like, him sexually, right? And then to just play it off as, oh, he misses his kid, felt fucking weird. It didn't make any level of sense.
Then T.H.E ends up being wholly inconsequential to the overarching story.
Entire story. She doesn't even function as an active, like, censor for when things are going to go wrong, because she only ever mentions that she feels evil auras after we already know stuff is going down.
You wanna know one of the best parts here?
What?
This was T.H.E's debut story chapter.
That's unfortunate because it's bad.
Prior to this, she was an unplayable NPC in what's considered one of the worst FGO events to date.
Oh, the Journey to the West.
She was kind of a footnote in that event too.
The Journey to the West event.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because this is shit for her.
Yeah.
This is bad. This is actively bad for T.H.E. And also the way that they've translated T.H.E does not do any favors. Because sometimes the sentence fragments make up entire completed sentences that are grammatically correct, and then sometimes they're just randomly missing articles of speech. It's not even consistent. Like, if you were going to take out articles and determinatives, take them out for all of the sentences. Don't take them out for some of the sentences, and then just randomly place periods in other ones, but keep in the articles and determinants. There's no point. There's no consistency in the way that they were written grammatically in English either.
Now, how about I think this is the last member of our cast coming from Chaldea, with Sanson.
Sanson was doing really well for me until they elected to, with virtually no explanation, have him just stay with the Witchfinder General, and then basically have zero input in the entire rest of the chapter until the very end in the epilogue where he's resurrected right into the Throne of Heroes. Because the way that they wrote him to me, it did not make sense why he decided to stay with the Witchfinder General when it didn't feel like he was actually accomplishing what he wanted. And then it didn't feel like we actually got a satisfying interaction with him in terms of his death in the story context. It genuinely felt like they just wrote him out because they didn't need him anymore.
Sanson's always confusing for me here. Like, I understand that the point was supposed to be basically Sanson was pushing things over the edge so that because it's basically trying to break a cycle, I think. But also, the writing doesn't do a good job building up to that at all.
I hate to say it. I hate to say it so much, but I actually could have used more POVs from Sasson in the middle of the chapter. Mm-hmm. Like in sections like 4 through 7, where he's like off with the Witchfinder General-ish, I actually they could have added more written dialogue, picture with him over. Because I feel like, I'm sure that what the writers intended actually makes a lot of sense. It just feels like it was not communicated clearly enough to me as a reader. And actually, I think extra scenes would have fixed that in this case. I do actually just think that a few extra scenes would have done the trick here. Genuinely.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like his entire character here was just boiled down to, he feels guilty about killing people.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I get, but not a valid reason.
He's one of those elements that I feel like even at release, it didn't land well with me. Like, I was like, what the fuck was that? It feels like they were trying. Like, he was supposed to be discovering. Like, I feel like he was supposed to be figuring things out, and we just don't get an idea of what he's figured out versus what we've figured out at any point in the chapter.
Yeah. It does feel a little... It feels a little weird to like, still be thinking about how much I liked this chapter, given how much I disliked some of the servants we brought with us and their actual contributions to the chapter. That's a little funky. And then obviously we kind of mentioned Robin already, but Robin essentially has no place in this story. Like, at all. Not functionally. Robin's just there to make up a number is what it feels like.
He's there to call Sanson out when Sanson starts pulling fucky shit with
the
Witchfinder General.
Yeah.
The problem is, when Sanson starts doing that, that's like the low point of Sanson's writing. So Robin serving the purpose of being a foil to Sanson at that point, like in being the one that's like the most up in arms about Sanson's choices, doesn't feel particularly well because Sanson doesn't work.
Yep. Yeah.
But we have plenty of casts that were in Salem itself as well. I don't want to go, like, we don't need to go over Giles Corey and
Mrs. Pickman.
Mrs. Pickman.
Yeah.
But we can definitely go over some of the more involved characters, like the Witchfinder General.
Yeah, that was a fun kind of out of nowhere throw in sort of the thing. Interesting that in the end kind of over the course of the chapter, you kind of assume, he's out of time, so like not in the correct time period, not in the correct place, like what's happening, and then kind of for at the end for it to be like, well, he's not a servant, but he could become one given the right circumstances.
Yeah, he's very much a red herring here.
Yeah. Because he's so out of place, you automatically assume that he has to have something to do with this, right? And he does, but not in a causality sort of way, but more in an effect way. Like, he is the effect, not the cause. But yeah, placing someone like, 60 years out of time and on a different continent? Interesting choice.
Or how about your the character that you didn't recognize for a full like scene and a half.
You mean T.H.E?
Or yeah, T.H.E. Totally
Yeah.
T.H.E.
Yeah, totally T.H.E. Seki's not face blind at all.
You did not recognize that one, and then suddenly like, oh, that was Queen of Sheba, who
And
we
the
have done at this
and
point.
like the thing was, I in full 120% honesty with you, Nick Nack. I looked at T.H.E, right, when T.H.E appeared in chapter, and I genuinely in my head did not think that's a servant. My thought was, Fate did something really funky with that historical character's design. I didn't even cognize this half naked woman in bright colors with purple hair as, oh, this could be a servant. No, my brain, for full on, what, 2 full streams, right, was just like, oh, what an interesting looking T.H.E. And we had just done the Queen of Sheba, like, what, 2 months ago? Like, it hasn't even been that long since we did Queen of Sheba. Oh my god. Like, I know we talk about, like, my situational amnesia, but
That was bad.
it was so bad. Like, it's embarrassing to admit, but yeah, no, I did not even think T.H.E was a servant. Until after she had died and I recognized her in the play as Queen of Sheba. That was genuinely when I realized.
So, what did you think of her character itself, though? Queen of Sheba's character.
Yeah, honestly, I would have liked to hear a little bit more about her feelings towards, like, Solomon and Goetia. I think emotionally, they could have done a little bit more damage to us. You know, they only stuck a knife in my heart, like, once with that one discussion with Match about Romani. They could have done to stick a knife in my heart 2 or 3 times, to be honest.
It is just a bit crazy that the character, like one of the characters with the most connection to Solomon that we have in this game, has no input about what happened with him. Which it's also funny that Solomon's father has had shockingly little input in the FGO story as well. Like, we have Solomon's father and maybe kind of sort of side girl or wife. No commentary on Romani after his sacrifice.
Which is a little disappointing. I think I kind of wanted more. But at the same time, I enjoyed Sheba as a character because it is T.H.E at first, right? Like, we're interacting with her as T.H.E, and it's very much just what I was expecting from T.H.E. And then we get her as sort of Queen of Sheba. And she's mysterious, and she kind of has things she does that are unexplainable. But she's still got a personality. And like I said, they did stick a knife in my heart once. When she brought it up to Mash the one time. I just... And she does mention, like, Goetia and the Demon Pillars a few more times. Actually, I think she could have mentioned it a little bit more. I would have been okay with, like, a little, like, flashback, like, section or pip or, like, you know, just a little bit more, you know, emotionally. But then again, you know me, I like my stories to devastate me emotionally a lot of the time.
I feel like there's a missing chance that they could have done to even characterize Goetia, because they do mention that Queen of Sheba is the only human Goetia trusted, and we get no other expansion on that.
Yeah, they cold drop that with nothing else. I'm like, bro, give me more. I want to know why. You know, I want to have you elucidate on this, but I don't think Queen of Sheba was done badly. I think she was done quite well. I just almost wish. I wish that it's not. I almost wish. I wish there was more, like even more. Which is so funny with how much I was complaining about the reading level of this chapter. Is that I actually wish this chapter had been longer. Especially fleshing out the middle and end a little bit more. Actually, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
They really raced, especially through, like, the last, like, 3 sections or so. And I think they could have honestly dragged them out a bit more, and I would have been perfectly content.
That's where, like, a lot of my problems come in, is all that setup And then when you actually get to the interesting like Lovecraft Cthulhu stuff, and it's starting to like shit's starting to go down, it's like the shortest part of the entire chapter.
Yeah.
But we're not quite done on the Salemites. We have, I think, this is probably our last. Oh no, we have. I'll save Abby for last here. How about that Randolph Carter? Or AKA the Demon Pillar, yeah. And then we can also talk about the brief actual
real Randolph Carter, yeah,
Carter with his Chandra. I forget the full name.
Chandraputra.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cosmic traveling gentleman. I'm gonna be honest. The only thing that would have made Randolph Carter better for me in this chapter is if he had been teaching at Miskatonic University, and not like whatever it was, like Yale School or something. They gave an actual name. I think it was Yale because that's topical to the location. But it would have actually been really funny if they'd thrown in like Miskatonic as the university that he was teaching at, because Miskatonic's the famous university in the Lovecraft mythos world.
But I think that's also probably geographically not even close to where he would have had to be for this story to work.
Well, I mean, hold on. Because I want to say, Miskatonic's it's in Massachusetts.
Oh.
It would have been locally topical as well.
Sorry, I know Lovecraft and I assume New England.
Yeah. Well, New England, in the case of what Lovecraft was referring to, is a region, not the state of not those states up north. It's the region, because yeah. You're thinking of like a specific set of like a specific state or two, but no, this is a larger region. But actually, this like Miskatonic is located in Massachusetts, and so is Salem. So like in technicality, they could have used Miskatonic like very easily, and I would not have been at all surprised if they had. That would have been really fun. So. But no, Randolph Carter, I'm going to be honest, I have I think literally no notes about Randolph Carter / the Demon Pillar / the real Randolph Carter. Because it really did truly feel like an H.P. Lovecraft character. Like truly. And that's what it is. It is an H.P. Lovecraft character. And it felt like an H.P. Lovecraft character. Like the vaguely sort of like off feeling that you get from him, like even at the beginning, that just... little things, it's the little things and like these little bits of information that you learn, and you're always kind of on like he's on your side and then he's something not. In between? Yeah, like he's on your side and then he's not. He's doing something you trust, he's doing something you don't. Something just feels wrong in like a very strange way.
He's also probably, just thinking about it, the Demon Pillar we've spent the most time in any story chapter of FGO interacting with.
It also feels like he's the Demon Pillar that has, like, the most thought out, in-depth, complex chess piece plan out of all of our Demon Pillars so far. Like, this man is attempting to play 5D chess somehow.
They even try to tie in the previous Remnant stories. They're including Seraph. Like, they tie in the fact that he was watching those other things play out and, like, pulling what worked and what didn't from those.
Yeah, like I said, the man's trying to play 5D chess, and I kind of love it for him, you know? I actually think they did Randolph Carter as the Demon Pillar and then as Randolph Carter, like, actual Randolph Carter, fantastically. Because, like, when he shows back up as, like, the real Randolph Carter, he's got this sort of, like, generally, like, positive, but sort of like almost like Luna Lovegood feel to him. Do you know what I mean there? Like eclectic madness, but in a generally positive leaning way. And so it really does distinguish Lovecraft possessed by Raum and Lovecraft himself, like, really well.
Obviously, an idealized version of Lovecraft, stripped of that certain a certain non-discriminate bigotry.
Yeah.
But my brother and I have, and I've seen other people in the Fate fandom also kind of say that that ending version of the real Randolph Carter, and like the entire situation he's got going on with Abby, that felt very Doctor Who-ish.
It did,
Like
yeah.
the eccentric weirdo
Who
that
travels
knows
the
way too
time and
much and just
space.
picks a random young girl to travel with him.
Yeah, and he travels time and space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was fun. Like that was a fun ending for Abby, and a fun ending for us to get to witness. So I very much enjoyed it, right? And then like obviously chat that told me that like the reason why he was like sleeping was because of him dealing with Hokusai Cthulhu, right? Which was another super fun bit of information that I did not know about.
Yeah, so there was a Hokusai trial quest. You know
I
how I
bought
made
it.
you play the Musashi trial quest?
Yeah, I bought the Hokusai one.
Okay, so you bought that after the stream today?
Mm-hmm.
Or was that prior?
No,
Okay.
after because it was free.
That's something, maybe you want to play that, like, not even on stream necessarily, but you want to just quickly read through that before the Christmas event. Christmas is very short, so that might give us a little extra bit to talk about just as a fun, because that's actually technically a New Year's event too. So
Okay.
if you wanna read through that, we could do Christmas and the New Year with that.
Yeah. But yeah,
If you feel
no.
like it. If you don't feel like it, don't worry about it. But if you feel like it, that does do more Cthulhu stuff.
Yeah, I think solidly Randolph Carter's probably my favorite character in the chapter, whether it's Raum or regular Randolph Carter. I genuinely my favorite character in this chapter.
Okay. And then, I guess, rounding out the cast and our big character here, Abigail.
Well, we haven't really
Williams.
talked about Lavinia either.
Oh, we haven't. You're right. Let's go to Lavinia first. You're right.
Yeah, Lavinia and the Whateleys. Which is fun because, like, at first, like, obviously I know that they're fictional characters from, like, a Lovecraft book, right? But they at first seem, like, so naturally inserted into Salem as just, like, those weirdos who live on the outskirts of the village. You know, every village has those weirdos who live on the outskirts. You know what I mean? So, like, I didn't...
Oh, sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Because, so, like, I didn't really clock it as all that strange that FGO would just drop in a couple extra characters into Salem, especially at the beginning when we think it is like a representation of historical Salem before everything comes out about like how Raum has been like deliberately manipulating this, you know? I was like, oh.
I immediately clocked Lavinia and Randolph Carter because I might not know my Lovecraft mythos, but that girl is weird, and I know the named characters in the Crucible and a lot of the people involved in the Salem witch trials. Lavinia, the Whateleys, and Randolph Carter are not names amongst either of those lists.
And see, I get that. It's just, I didn't necessarily, I think, clock it immediately as weird that, like, Fate would just say, oh, yeah, the Whateleys lived in Salem in the 1690s, you know? Like, I could see Fate just deciding that. You know what I mean? Because they could go anywhere in the timeline after a certain point of, like, development, to be honest. So, like, I knew, like, something was up with Salem, but I wasn't necessarily thinking, they've been brought here to play a specific part in a story as orchestrated as part of the chessboard. And then obviously Lavinia is a weird little kid, but I love her. She's fantastic. I'm right there with you on the fact that she should absolutely be a servant. Chat had some fantastic suggestions too for like how she could be a servant. I think the leading ones that people were really liking was if she was a 2 or 3 star Buster support for Abby that was in like the general pool or the friend point pool, or like either a caster or like a 2 or 3 star foreigner. You know, just in the general pool that could function as a Buster buff that would work really well with Abby.
That's where I'm at too, because we kind of need. It would be nice to have an accessible foreigner in the non-limited pool, in 3-star and lower. I think we have 4 or 5-star foreigners, but that's beside the point. It'd be nice to have an accessible one like that, and also like we do have servants that are built to be sometimes general use, but also support specific characters. Like Zufu is a very good general use art support, but then Jufu also has extra stuff for Consort U. So having something like that for Lavinia to either support Abby or foreigners in general would be really, really cool.
Yeah, and honestly, Lavinia's already got an FGO servant style design. Like, genuinely. You just have to make her another, like, two arts or something. Or even just one other art if you make her a welfare. You know? Like, she's already got a design that looks just like a servant. Just throw her in the game. Really, genuinely. But yeah, Lavinia is super great. And then, obviously, the elephant in the room, Abby.
Yes.
Abby is the center of Salem. I correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there were a couple different points throughout the chapter where I feel like I got weird vibes from Abby. Like, I feel like there were some moments in, like, early sections and mid sections before everything came out that the writing was, like, hinting at Abby being a little off. Like, not the simple, innocent girl that's just kind of caught up in all this shit. Maybe I was just reading into it because obviously I knew who Abby was gonna be in FGO, and I knew that she was gonna be sort of like the big bad at the end of this chapter. But I feel like there were moments.
There might have been some foreshadowing here, but I think it's also pretty important to remember Abigail Williams in both the fictional and historical context. In the fictional context, Abigail Williams was straight up a psychopath and an actual, like, horrifically terrible human being. Obviously, that's not our Abby here that we're seeing. We're seeing the historical Abby. And even the historical Abby was a weird little girl who went out into the woods and did, like, she did go out into the woods and play around with weird things that her that her caretaker taught her.
But, like, no offense, Knick-Knack, what little girl doesn't go out into, like, the woods or the back of their house and play witches?
That's why Abby in real history was not the same terrible human being that Abby in the Crucible is. But
well, she was significantly younger in the Salem Witch Trials than she is in the Crucible, right? Like, that's one of the biggest differences between the Crucible and the Salem Witch Trials. Is in the Witch Trials, she's 9 or 11 or something, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And in the Crucible, she's like young adult, 16-ish.
Yeah, something
range. Like that. And that's obviously a big part of the conflict in the Crucible because they've got that whole love plot going.
But regardless, you probably, if you know anything about the Salem Witch Trials or the Crucible, you should be getting bad vibes from her immediately.
Yeah.
But also, even if you don't, the way she's written, it would be in line with how, like the more suspicious actions, you could, in theory, pass them off as, oh, that's a weird girl doing weird things, because Abby was a weird girl doing weird things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. And I love Abby's design. She's so cute, you know? I will say one thing that annoyed me, and this is entirely an aesthetic thing about Abby and Lavinia, is the constant ... and implied stuttering on, like, every other word. Or, like, after a word ... 2 more words ... 2 more words ... Stop it. Do it once, and it shows the reader what's happening. It does not need to be repeated every 3 words for the reader to get the point of view that, like, Abby is hesitant. She is speaking slowly or carefully, you know, or shyly. It's not necessary to be that emphatic with the two of them about, like, the implied stutters and ... It was just annoying to read. Because it also, sometimes it made their lines take up so much space that you'd be, like, tapping through just to get, like, a single sentence of dialogue.
Man, FGO and verbal tics cannot win with you. The crash out over yes, or Mash's senpai, or
so sad.
They're so sad. Yeah,
so
you
sad.
And verbal tics are like some of your biggest crash outs in FGO reading.
Because to a certain point, it's understandable. Right? Like, and when you hear it in audio format, it's not necessarily as bad, right? Because you're not the one having to interpret that, right? Somebody is doing the interpretation for you. So, like, for example, like Naruto's vocal tic, where he goes, the tebayo, at the end of, like, sentences, it's not so bad to hear that occasionally at the end of sentences. Because he doesn't end every single sentence he ever speaks with that, you know? And you're hearing it, you're not having to necessarily read it. Whereas in this case, you're like, I'm reading this, and the sheer amount of parts of text that are dotted when Abby is talking is actively making it, because you can only get like 2 lines of text in at a time, and sometimes her sentences are long, it actively makes it inconvenient to read smoothly, right? Like, I get what you're trying to imply, but you're going over the top in implying it. Like to an extent that I don't think is necessary for the understanding of what's happening, like verbally. You know what I mean? Personally.
I think you need to read more anime visual novels.
I think I don't need to read more anime visual novels. I think I absolutely do not need to be reading more visual novels.
Yeah. So then I guess this is something I want to ask. How do you feel like because I talked a bit about, we've talked a bit about how the climax felt a bit like a bit rushed into. Did you feel like that really tied things together well on the Lovecraft side, like, or did you feel like that was maybe a little like underwhelming with how that all paid off?
I think for the most part they did a pretty good job. I think the difference between it being a pretty good job and what would have made it not a good job is that if they hadn't had Lavinia drop information about like Soot Typhoon and stuff a little bit earlier than the climax, but they did, and so it wasn't so much of a problem for me. I think they actually did a pretty good job wrapping it up. Obviously, I still think it was rushed. Don't get me wrong. I think there could have been more added to it. And it would not have hurt the story to have more added to it. But I don't think it was necessarily a bad wrapped conclusion in the end.
Okay.
I felt pretty satisfied on sort of the topic of the Outer Gods, because I think my takeaway from that was that what has happened in Salem does not destroy the Outer Gods, nor does it shut them off from Earth permanently. It simply shuts this one gate at this one time. But this will be a recurring thing that can and will happen at various times, and every instance will have to be dealt with individually.
Yep, that's there is a slightly ongoing plot line with the Outer Gods. You've missed some of them because sometimes they're in events like you won't get to read everything, because one Halloween did some Outer Gods stuff. But you will get one of our main interludes in the future will be pretty much a direct continuation of that idea, the Outer Gods starting to encroach on the world.
Yeah. So I think I got exactly the takeaway I was supposed to get from that. And that any story is to be commended for getting a reader to where they need to be.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. Well, I think that about wraps up all the ground I think we had to cover on Salem, unless you have anything else you wanted to bring up.
I don't think so. Oh, so Mephistopheles. Fuck was up with that? Was that actually just like a hallucination, or did I'm assuming it wasn't a hallucination, and what happened was Mephistopheles actually did have the power to appear before our main character, but it was because of some weird shit that was going on with the demon pillars in Salem.
So Mephistopheles coming in is just because the demon pillar made what Mephistopheles called a hellscape. But I guess this is a fun thing for me to mention. I do love that the plot of this singularity is basically the plot of the entire concept of WandaVision, done years and years before WandaVision ever happened.
Yeah, it really is. It did give
Which
WandaVision.
Is funny.
I think I mentioned that in like the first stream. I think I mentioned that it gave me WandaVision vibes in the first stream, and you know I love WandaVision. Mm-hmm. So, I'm here for it.
It's all the more funny that this is right off the heels of Solomon, which did Endgame portals years and years before Endgame portals happened.
Yeah.
And we're going into the Lost Belt arc, which does like all these new timelines and prunings years and years before Loki introduced the idea of timelines needing to be pruned.
So what you're saying, Nick Nack, is that lasagna The Mushroom in My Walls, has a really good copyright case against Marvel for what's the phrasing of it? Creative theft, story theft. What you're saying is that the Mushroom in My Walls could sue Marvel.
Look, I'm not saying that that they have a legal case against them. What I am saying is that the mushroom in your walls might need to check the lining of the walls because Kevin Feige might be in there.
I think Lasagna needs to check his walls for Kevin Feige.
All right. Well, that's probably a good spot to end our discussion on Salem. I think next up will be Christmas and maybe the Hokusai Trial Quest if you find the time to read that, since you have some time.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's next.
You don't know what's next. But something will be next.
Have a good one, folks.